What are 5 ways to hold people accountable? Accountability. That is a theme I'm hearing this week when I'm doing executive coaching. And so, whether or not you want to apply this to your workplace, whether or not you want to apply it on the personal side, to your family, this is going to be a great topic, is around accountability. How do we really hold people accountable? And I've been doing this work for 25 years with families, over 15 years with organizations. I have seen this topic in all shapes and sizes. And I'm going to tell you something just before we actually dive into this. Around all the leadership skills that we teach as a company, there are certain ones that are a lot more difficult to implement. And anything around the communication piece, around giving and receiving feedback, is really difficult for a lot of people. But the one that I would say is actually the most difficult for any great leader is this topic, is accountability. It is the hardest one. I think that's why a lot of people are like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to hold people accountable. And I'm just going to warn you, okay? I'm going to teach you the 5. But just before we dive in, if you are a leader with a team in the organization or actually in your family and you're actually trying to hold people actually accountable, get ready. Okay, I'm going to warn you right now. Get ready, because when we try to hold people accountable, and most people do not want to be held accountable. Okay, so if when we're trying to do that job, get ready, because people will often change the topic, start gaslighting. They will triangulation is a really, really popular tactic to kind of get themselves off the hook. So triangulation, gaslighting, blaming, avoiding are all ways that a lot of times a person does not want to be held accountable. Okay, so be prepared. That is common when somebody is not emotionally healthy. That is often the response. Somebody who is emotionally healthy, they will accept accountability and they will accept ownership of something maybe that they have not done. But when you're dealing with someone who's not emotionally healthy, just be aware that that actually might in fact happen. Okay, so there are 5 kind of different ways that when we're trying to hold each other accountable, again, workplace or home, 5 things I want us to really be aware of. Okay, so here we go. Number 1 is you want to make sure that you are super clear on your goals. Okay, that you're super clear on your goals. So in the workplace, you want to make sure, am I really clear? Am I super razor clear on what I want other people to do and what our team's goals and objectives are? So am I super clear as a leader? Am I clear, and are they measurable? Because if your goals are not clear, not measurable, people don't then know what to be accountable for. Okay, so as a leader, you've got to do a little check-in with yourself. Have I been super clear? Are they measurable? Are they recorded? Have they been communicated? So you want to make sure that you have done your part as a leader to making sure that then people have the best chance for success. The family side, same thing. Okay, so family side, same thing. Have you been super clear with your expectations and your goals, and are they measured, and have they not only been verbally spoken but maybe even actually written down so people actually have a hard copy? Okay, so the first thing is making sure you've been really clear on your goals. Okay, number 1. Number 2 is the ownership. Who is responsible for that particular goal? And this is where a lot of times things kind of start breaking down. So on the workplace, we'll have in teams, for example, when we're coaching teams, there'll be all kinds of different objectives and key results that people are trying to work on. Do people know who exactly is accountable for what item? Because if we don't really know who's accountable and who's responsible, then it's very easy to start kind of pointing the finger and kind of blaming other people. So it's really important that you have a very clear accountability chart to kind of really map out who is actually responsible for what item as part of your OKRs, objective key results. Family side, the same thing. So for example, if you're kind of giving certain jobs or certain chores to your kids and you say to your kids, okay, you, plural, you guys are responsible for, I don't know, doing the yard work, that might be actually very vague. If it's very clear around which part of the yard work and who is responsible for which part of the yard work, your likelihood for it to increase goes up a lot more. So for example, on the family side, we have twins. They each have weekly chores. We're very clear on which child, and we've all had this discussion, which child is responsible for which chore on which day. And so there's not a shared responsibility. The second that it's shared, certainly when you're talking about teenagers and kids, it can get really blurry. So you want to have very clear lines, okay? Clear lines in terms of who is responsible for what. The third item is when. So when we're actually trying to hold people accountable, we have to make sure that we have deadlines. If we don't have deadlines, then we can just kind of go at our own pace. So it's very clear. This is what I need you to do. This is who I need who I need to do the job, and this is when I actually need it by. So you've got to be very clear on the deadlines. Same thing with the family. Be very clear on your deadlines, on when certain tasks need to get done. And it's interesting. This seems so intuitive, right? Doesn't it? It seems intuitive, and it seems it's like, oh yes, Karyn, this just kind of makes a lot of sense. Yes, this makes sense because this is logical. This is how great family systems operate. This is how great organizational systems operate, is we need to have things really, really simple. So if you notice, everything that I'm talking about is under that kind of that communication umbrella. So we have a fabulous tool that that measures your scoring. It actually measures your score as it relates to communication. You're going to want to get your hands on this. It's free. So just in the comments below, type in yes. Okay, type in yes. Somebody from our team will send it to you. You can get our scorecard. You can measure your communication, your leadership skills, so you kind of know with which ones that you can actually you need to work on. And then we've got lots of other free resources that can actually help you develop the skills, because this is a really, really foundational skill for all ages, and certainly for great leaders at work and at home. And I talk about a little bit in my book as well. I talk about accountability, the importance about accountability in my book, The 3 Chairs, if you haven't got it. Okay, so we've talked about making sure that you're very clear on what your goals are, who is responsible for it, when it has to get done. The fourth one, which is really important, is you actually have to talk about why. Why are these goals important? Why is the timing important? Why is maybe the person that you've assigned the job to, why they are really the ideal person? Talk about the why. And this is not, people say, well, Karyn, that's spoon feeding or baby. No, it's not spoon feeding. It's not babysitting. It's like people need to know the why. The why is very important. So when you are assigning that ideal person to a particular role within your organization, tell them why. Yes, because you're amazing at this skill. You're so good at it. This is your superpower. This is your unique ability. I believe in you. I've seen you do these jobs in so many other places, and I can really see that you are really excelling in this particular area. Give them lots of accolades. Give them lots and lots of praise. Let them know why in a really positive way. And the same thing with the family. When you're trying to get engagement and you're trying to be assigning certain roles with people and you're trying to drive that kind of accountability, make sure you really emphasize the why in a really positive, energizing way. Okay, so you want to kind of make sure you get that. And then the last one, and this is the hardest one, everybody. This is the hardest one. And this is why a lot of people do not want to do this job. Every great leader, though, if you want to be a great leader at work, you want to be a great leader in your personal life, in your home life, we have to learn how to deal with accountability. And the fifth one, which is really, really hard, is you have to have very clear boundaries. You have to have very clear boundaries that this is what I expect, this is why I expect it, this is when I expect it, and if you don't do X, then this is going to happen. And people need to know ahead of time with what the consequence is if they don't actually fulfill their responsibilities and their role. It's certainly a lot easier on the family side than the work side. Some people might say the work side is more easier than the more difficult. For a lot of people, it's a lot easier to hold people accountable to people in the workplace that we don't have emotion. The second we have emotion, what often happens is people will they feel so uncomfortable with accountability that they will retreat, or they'll kind of make excuses for the person. And if we really want to help people grow, and this is part of the why, actually, when we really want to help people grow, it's not just about organizational goals and family goals, it's about people growing. When we really want people to grow, it is critical that we hold people accountable to the roles that we've actually assigned. Because if we excuse them, if we let them off the hook, if we kind of make excuses for them, we are limiting their growth. We're not helping them, we're actually harming them. Okay, so it's really important that we really focus on the big picture, the why, And therefore, having those hard conversations about accountability and to talk about the consequences. If a person doesn't do X, Y is going to happen. People need to know what's going to happen if they continually don't do what they're supposed to do, certainly in the workplace and the home place. There are consequences. Consequences where people may not work with them, their job might be on the line, they won't get promoted. It's going to really affect in terms of the overall team culture. It's going to affect the morale. It's certainly easier, I think, when there's accountability, where the person actually is experiencing the consequences of their choice. And obviously it depends, again, not to get into the nitty gritty, but it obviously depends with what that exact consequence is from the workplace. But the point here is that people need to know what the consequence is if they don't do their part. And that's both in the workplace and in the home place, in the family life. And so you want to talk about it, and not to be like super negative, but that is kind of like part of it. And that's why a lot of people don't like this topic, and they will retreat and they will try to avoid. And so, however, if you can make sure that you are doing those first four, and you're certainly being very intentional, and you're being very clear about the goals and ownership and deadlines and why, and you lean in and you really try to teach your organization, your team, as well as your family, that great systems in the workplace and the home place, great systems, we lean in, we're very clear about our goals, and we hold each other accountable towards those goals, then we've got much more likely to be successful, right? As a team, as a system, but also in our own individual leadership actually as well. So hopefully you have enjoyed. Make sure if you want to get your hands on that scorecard, type in yes below. And be sure to check out a lot of our other videos. We've got lots of videos. Check them out. And hopefully we will see you on one of our other videos that teaches leadership skills, both for your workplace as well as your family life.